We're on? Okay. Before I call the meeting to order, last time I, among others, I think had trouble hearing, especially when we had people speaking from the audience. So when I went home, I did look at the YouTube version of it. And it's very important when any of us are talking to push the button that has a little person with the waves so that your microphone is on. You can turn it off when you're not talking, but when you're talking, you need to have it on. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order. And roll call, Carmen.
Here.
Dismer.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Kimmel is not here yet. We hope he'll come. Figley.
Here.
Astrike here. Anderson. Here. And Schweber.
Here.
Okay, first item on the agenda is public comment. And can I caution you, be very loud because that microphone for some reason doesn't transmit here. The video picks it up when it's online, but when you're talking, it's very difficult to understand. So,
I just have a small piece of technical advice for the comment that you just made before the meeting began. You can't all have your mics on at the same time. The system is set up so that only, I think, 5 or 6 mics can be on at a time. If everyone has their mic on and somebody tries to turn their mic on, it won't allow you to turn it on. So it is not simply the case that you can turn your microphone on and just let it be on for the remainder of the meeting, because then you will prohibit other people who want to speak from being able to use their microphone. So I know this from experience. It is an all-night endeavor of click, click, click. Whenever you want to talk, click, turn it on. When you're done talking, click, turn it off. But you can't just leave it on all night.
okay, thank you. And let the record show that's Alderman Dylan Parker. Did anybody else wish to speak on the public comment? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes. Approval of the minutes of January 28th. Is there any additions or corrections? And if not, I'll have a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Next item is a review of the authorization request for a proposed congregate living arrangement at 702 20th Street. And where'd Eunice go?
She's in the back, but I can
You can
take care of this. Yeah. So the department received an authorized use request for the Connor Parker House that was designated as a local landmark in 1987, located at 702 20th Street. The applicant is Mary Gordon. She is requesting authorization to operate a congregate living arrangement. This would be a residence that contains 8 separate sleeping units. She proposes to rent out 7 rooms to individual tenants while occupying the 8th unit herself. Kitchen and living areas will be shared among residents, and each tenant will have access to a private bathroom. I have the staff report attached to this memorandum. I can go over more specifics on that if the commission likes, but per the preservation ordinance, the commission is, of course, requested to review this application since it is a landmark property and provide your comments regarding its impact. Those comments will be recorded and then directly relayed to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their regular meeting next Monday when they have a public hearing on the request. So I have the staff report attached. I can go over more details on that or answer specific questions if the commission has them, but just seeking the commission's comments at this time. Staff is recommending approval of the request because we think it satisfies the criteria, but happy to take any comments from the commission at this time.
Who would like to begin? Comments?
Just a question to start with. It talks about
Can you take your mask off when you're talking, Bruce?
seven people and the owner. Right now, you've got a single person there, and at times it says we're going to have 8 people. What happens if that person, the owner, gets married? How does the city look at that? Does that change anything? Then you go to 9 people there versus 8?
So that's dependent on the request, of course. So right now they're requesting a congregate living arrangement for up to 8 people. Staff have recommended that be a stipulation in the approval. So, that would be what the city would say, hey, if it was to increase beyond that, they would need to come back for authorization again.
Is the owner living there a requirement, or is that just the situation?
We have not made that a requirement in our recommendation for approval, but that's something the commission could, of course, comment on or suggest.
Are there others? Linda?
I guess I would
Mike?
comment on.
Mike?
About having the owner be required to be there, because I think it makes it a little a bit easier just to manage it. I guess my concern is that other places where we have houses that are that big, is this something we really want to start doing in a variety of neighborhoods, or like a whole block of such homes in one neighborhood because all the homes are bigger? And even if it's not 8, if it's 6 unrelated people, I mean, it's my concern that will change the flavor of the neighborhood if we're not very careful. And once you do it for one, what stipulations would you ever be able to put in place that would not allow you to do it for someone else if they came with the same request?
So, I mean, staff would analyze that based on the criteria in the zoning ordinance. And, you know, one thing we feel about this property is that there are some unique circumstances given its past use. It'd be hard to find that with other properties, I think, in the Broadway neighborhood and some of those larger properties. It could be the case, you know, that some of those homes could have an unrelated group use and have up to 5 unrelated people living there, and that would be, you know, administratively approved. So that could happen, but, you know, going beyond that, it would probably be a harder argument for other properties, I would think, without knowing the specifics. This property in particular, just given how it's set up, you know, staff feel like it's reasonable to grant this authorization.
So basically, are you saying that you're only approving it for this one particular location? And any other house that wanted to do that in a neighborhood, residential neighborhood, would have to come specifically and ask for that particular address?
Correct, yes. And staff would then analyze that on a case-by-case basis and the merits of that
Still a
request.
little scary for those of us who think we might be living near one. I mean, just a thought process. Because then I don't know what you do after the house has 5 bedrooms or 5 bathrooms put in it, and you've got parking spaces for all those people, and then you decide, gee, these people didn't do a very good job of it. I think we're going to take back their permit or then you've got this house now that you're going to have to deal with that's been, you know, modified.
Sure. And it's my understanding for this request, they're not making any physical changes to the interior or exterior. So that parking arrangement that was used for the bed and breakfast would remain the same. The interior configuration would remain the same. So there's no changes for this
But then
this
that
property.
follows, if you get a house, if I want to do it to my house, and maybe it's not going to be 5, maybe it's going to be 4, or, you know, whatever. Is there any way that you can tell me no?
No.
Because if you've already granted it for someone else, you're setting this precedent that, yes, it is allowable to have that many. And I mean, maybe that's just the way it is.
I mean, that already exists. So like I could chop up my house and put 5 bedrooms in it and move somewhere else and rent it out to five people, and that could be administratively approved so long as there's not another unrelated group use within 300 feet. So that would just be meeting building code and a property renovation, but somebody could do that by right now. That's not contingent on this being approved or denied.
I would kind of echo what Linda's raising, though, as a concern. I do think
Is your
that
mic on?
it is.
Okay.
I think it's important that the owner occupy it. That has been a case with the Parkers. You know, when it's been a bed and breakfast, they've been in residence there, and it does assure a greater degree of accountability to have the owner in residence of the property. And I share Linda's concern. I know going back to when we first designated the Broadway district, one of our major priorities was moving away from rental towards owner occupied. Now this is clearly will be owner occupied if we put that condition on it. But I think that is an important constraint, and I hear what you're saying, Tanner, in terms of this property, this is in line with its historic use, and that's probably the important distinction between this and other properties that might come in with the same request. But Linda makes a good point, I think, in terms of we need to be mindful of potential precedental effect that this could have on other properties in Broadway, and we certainly don't want Broadway to revert to the way it was 30, 40 years ago, where it was a bunch of subdivided, derelict older homes that were in need of TLC, which has since been provided. So I think if we put the condition on it that the owner would be an occupancy of it, and understanding that it's historic use and subdivision of the property countenances this kind of use, it would be approved, but with those constraints
Sure.
and understanding.
And there were apartments like that in the Looney House in my neighborhood. There were 3 apartments in the basement, for heaven's sakes, plus however many they had in the upstairs part of the house. Now, whether it was other owner occupied or not, who would know? People were coming and going. You know, I mean, this was 30 years ago. This wasn't recently at all. It's when I first moved in that neighborhood. But it made it very different. It was a very different place to live when it was like that.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the precedents as well. I mean, Broadway has done so much, starting back in the late 80s, to try to down zone and try to encourage home ownership and investment. And it changes the flavor of the neighborhood. There's been a lot of money invested by private owners in restoration. Not to say that that wouldn't happen here, but it seems to be going against the original concept of less density, more home ownership, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jeff. And Bruce, I thought you were going to say something before, or? Oh, okay. Alan?
Couple questions. One, Tanner, you did say there are no physical changes that are proposed to the interior exterior at this point. And so at this point, we've got a bed and breakfast that was owner occupied with 5 guest rooms, or 6 guest rooms in it, I guess. So the property was already carved up into semi-apartment arrangements without kitchen facilities. And that's not going to happen to this property, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And staff would have a different feeling if they were to be chopped up into individual units.
And then the other question is, I know the zoning ordinance has been amended a few times over the last 10, 15 years, but is it still true with the Planning and Zoning Commission arrangement as opposed to separate Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, that each request for an authorized use is taken on its own merits and evaluated individually without identifying necessary precedent being set by prior decisions? Is that still true?
That's correct. I mean, they would view things on a case-by-case basis.
Other comments?
Does if the property should sell, does this exception go with the property, or is it removed?
In this
if the owner
case,
changes?
it would stick with the property.
So,
Yeah.
Pardon, what did you say?
In this case, it would stick with the property.
It would stick with the property.
Yeah.
I would have to say that I think this is a very negative thing, and I don't think your rationale, the conditions that you have to meet, for instance, cannot yield a reasonable return. There are single-family homes of this size with as many bedrooms as bathrooms. It's not typical of Broadway. And again, it's new ownership. So that return should have been investigated before the sale. The unique circumstances, again, that's the same thing. There's a lot of homes, especially newer ones, the McMansions, that have multiple bathrooms and multiple bedrooms. Secondly, I go back a long time to the 80s when the 7 and 800 blocks of 20th Street started off as sleeping rooms, probably during the war or a little bit earlier. Owners were there, and they had 1, 2, 3, 4 sleeping rooms. That's when they had shared facilities. But they gradually degraded into multiple apartments, and many buildings were torn down or literally should have been torn down. We're missing several of the buildings because it deteriorated so much. And if you go back to Parker's, I think that was a different situation. They had lived there as a family with no apartments. I think when they realized how much space they had, and they also would let people, friends, neighborhood, use their facilities as not quite a banquet facility, but as a party facility, if you will, a reception. I know we did it for Broadway, we did it for preservation, and I'm sure they did it for their church. It was not so much a commercial thing. It was only at the end when their 2 kids were gone that they said, let's try a bed and breakfast, which leads to another one of my questions. That bed and breakfast had people, typically for a weekend, maybe a little bit longer. They did the cleaning. They provided the linens. They did provide breakfast. It was a very upscale event. And the Parker family, it had been in their family since about 1940. David, who had the bed and breakfast, grew up there. He came as a very young child. So I don't think this, especially this density, and especially if it stays with the property, if it was a special use permit like they used to be to city council, I would see a little bit more, let's try it. I think it's very difficult also to enforce. There's only 8 people living there. You can't go in and do a bedroom check. And you don't know if the owner's living there. They can say, I live there. And again, this owner may be perfectly fine, but I would say it should not go with the property because that is an instant gateway to ultimate deterioration.
Is there a reason?
I'm sorry, Mark?
Is there a reason that we're not using this as a special use permit?
That's-
Which would be unique to the property owner?
Sure, yeah, so that's based on staff's determination of what, was the correct zoning process for this. The property is owned R2, and in the R2 district, there are authorized uses. And one of those authorized uses, they include a bed and breakfast and boarding and lodging house. Staff feel like this proposed use is similar to that boarding and lodging house use, that's the correct process for it to go through. A special use permit, that can be the recommendation of the commission would feel that's a better approach here, but just given, how the ordinance is constructed, staff felt that authorized use process was the correct one for this
Well,
applicant to go through.
Yeah, and I don't disagree that I think that was a rational determination to make, but it does require special authorization under the current ordinance, as I'm reading the report here. And that being the case, the authorization that could be given as a special use permit, could it not? And therefore, it would be unique to this property owner. And if the property owner were to sell or to change the use in any meaningful way, it would come back before presumably this group, and then the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yeah.
Now, that may address some of the concerns that are being raised around the table here, in addition to the owner-occupied requirement.
Mhm.
And that would still allow the use of the property by the current owner, but would make certain that it didn't slide in a deleterious direction.
I just
Dylan,
want
this really isn't a public hearing, so I don't know if it's appropriate for him to speak.
The commission, if it's the will of the commission,
Yeah.
he can certainly speak.
Okay,
I just had a technical question. I don't have any
be
input.
loud now.
I just had a question as far as the process. I don't understand. The matter of zoning is being considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission coming up, correct?
Correct.
The Preservation Commission is considering this because it's a landmarked property. Is that correct?
Correct.
So can I get clarity, because I don't understand, and I would like to understand. Is this authorization through the Historic Preservation Ordinance or through the zoning code?
It's through the zoning code.
And the zoning code,
We are only making a comment to the Planning Zoning Commission.
okay.
And that is
so-
part of the
On-
preservation ordinance.
On the impact of the
Yeah.
zoning change on the landmark property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alan?
I was going to bring that point up. I think there's really, for us as the Preservation Commission, it's the landmark element of it for the physical components, And secondly, then it's for the comment relative to the impact of the use from a preservation standpoint on the landmark and also potentially on Broadway as a National Registered District. So the comments that have been made are certainly in line with both of those things.
Thank you. Anything else? Now we're leaving it to Tanner then to summarize these comments and.
Yep, I will summarize them, put it in the staff report. I have a spot in the staff report to add those. I'll share that with the commission once that's complete.
Tanner, would it be desirable to have some kind of a motion coming out of this group?
That's
in
what I was
terms of
gonna
the things that we would recommend?
The commission is welcome to do that if you want to, make some official recommended maybe changes to the request or what would be approvable.
I guess what I would suggest doing then, in light of what seems to be a consensus around this table, that it would be the spirit of the Preservation Commission that we would recommend to the Planning and Zoning that this be approved, but with the conditions that it be, number one, owner occupied, that would be a requirement, and number two, that it would be a special use to this owner, so that in the event that ownership changed or there is a change in use of any sort, it would require an additional review. And it wouldn't just be passed to the next owner. That'd be my motion.
I assume you would summarize all of the comments, but would there be is that a motion you're making, Mark? Is there a second to that motion?
I will second.
Okay, Zach, second. Any other discussion on the motion?
Yes. I guess in my opinion, position is I'm not in favor of it at all. I just see the intent of the down zone, and I think they should follow the zoning, in my opinion.
Okay.
Just one other
Bruce?
comment is that if you look at the history here, some of how it's got to be used with the receptions and business gatherings and the gift shop came under that special use authorization. So it seems like it'd be fitting to continue it on and keep it in that special use permit function.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote then on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Thank you. Okay, well, you have a
Was that,
difficult time.
Linda, was that you?
I'm sorry.
And,
Yeah.
What did you say?
I said no.
You said no, okay.
thank you.
And a special use permit actually does allow revocation, even if it doesn't change ownership, if the conditions of the special use permit are violated. So, thank you very much. That was an interesting discussion. Okay, next item on the agenda is the summary of the CLG grant. And
We have a presentation.
Item B,
where am I?
historic design guidelines.
Oh, excuse me, I'm thinking, that's a CLG grant, the design guidelines, yes, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to get Erica hooked up on our screen here.
Now, can we bring that up on our screen?
If you press your input as 2, you should be able to do that.
Press what? Oh, the technical assistant is coming. Oh. Can we also
Kick all the
access
way
the
down,
report
so-
that Eunice emailed?
Not at this screen.
Okay,
Thank you.
You got it.
Okay.
I think we're good to go, so long as I think the audio should be good. Erica, would you mind saying something so we can test out the audio?
Sure, Tanner. Hi, Erica Ruggiero. Can everyone hear me okay?
yep.
Good to go. It's all you.
Okay. Do they have the slides that I shared earlier today in front of them, or should I put them up on my screen?
If you wouldn't mind just sharing those, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah. Let me share my screen.
Good.
Can you see them okay? Okay. All right, great. So again, Erica Ruggiero with McGuire Gillespie Associates. We've been working over the mid to late fall and now early winter on the design guidelines for historic properties within the city of Rock Island. And so we wrapped up survey work, which really focused on understanding all of the existing conditions within Rock Island's historic built environment. And I'll talk about what buildings we looked at in a moment. And so we're presenting tonight the outline for the design guidelines, and that's really to make sure that we have everything included that you all would like to see within the design guidelines. And again, it's based off what we saw in the built environment. But I definitely want to, open it up to any questions as well as we go through, and any suggestions in case we're missing anything. Let me see. Oh, 1 second. There we go. Okay. Can you see the map now? Because it gave me a message that I wasn't sharing for a second.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So over the last few months, we looked at about over 1,600 properties. I think it's like 1,650-ish. It includes 4 historic districts, 3 of which we've had the privilege of working on, downtown Rock Island, as well as the updates to the Broadway Historic District, the United States Housing Corporation District, which is one of the most recent, and then the Highland Park Historic District as well. And then there are about 75 or 76 individual either landmarks or properties that have been identified as significant within the city of Rock Island. And so we looked at those 4 districts plus all the individual properties to compile the basically an in-depth architectural description on the city's historic built environment that then served as the foundation or the basis for the design guidelines outline and what will eventually be in the design guidelines. And so just to talk through the outline that Eunice provided to you all, and so just diving into what we propose to include in design guidelines, I think there's always front end information. And so obviously an introduction, purpose, and project methodology. I think the methodology is really important because this is really quite a unique project, because a lot of times design guidelines are specific to a district and not necessarily so not encompassing an entire city's historic built environment. So I think sharing the methodology within the guidelines is important. There'll be some overarching or general principles that will really serve as our, the preservation goals and design principles for the guidelines, really focused on, preserving significant architectural features, character defining features, the materials, Rock Island's sense of place within the historic built environment. And so starting to outline some of those that will be included in the design guidelines. And then design and permit review process. So I know one question I have as we start to write and draft the text for the design guidelines is, how will the guidelines be implemented? How will they be used? Will they be codified, or will they be serve more as advisory guidelines? So something to think about, or if you know that information already, we can definitely circle back at the end of the slides. That way we can discuss and I can make sure it's incorporated correctly. And then after some of the front end information, we will provide a detailed illustrated architectural description of the built environment. It will include both building typologies, which have their own set of character defining features, as well as architectural styles. So just on the screen is kind of an array of different types of building forms, from churches to residential, both single family and multi-family residential, governmental buildings, commercial buildings, auto oriented buildings, industry. And then there's also a few very unique or one-off building typologies, such as the West End Settlement House. And so with each building typology, we'll provide a narrative description of the typology with representative photos, as well as identify those character defining features, which ultimately those are what we're looking to be preserved and maintained within the design guidelines. So for each typology that will be provided, and then also for each architectural style that will also be provided. So again, a narrative description on each architectural style. Rock Island has a really kind of wonderful range of styles. You have your, Victorian styles and like really new. I loved working in the Broadway district because of some of the East Lake and Stick and exotic revival that we don't see a lot of. And so there's a really long list of architectural styles that we've included. That's what we saw when in our kind of windshield survey of those 1650 buildings. But if there are any others that you all can think of that maybe are not included in the buildings that we did look at, please let me know. I know one that I think stood out to me was I wasn't sure if maybe there might be a Spanish Revival building within Rock Island, or like postmodern. If you can think of any others to add to the architectural styles list, we're happy to add those. Again, this is just what we saw in our survey. And then getting into now the kind of the third section of this document, which will be the design guidelines. I'll share as I go through these slides, what's on each slide is kind of a snippet of what we've included in previous design guidelines and kind of how it can start to lay out, just for reference. This is not necessarily how we'll look for the City of Rock Island design guidelines, but just so I have some graphic to speak to as we go through the subsections of this chapter of the design guidelines. And so with the design guidelines, it opens with guidelines related to the rehabilitation or restoration, maintenance of historic properties. And this is where then we've now taken the materials, the roof forms, door fenestration configuration, all of the materials and character defining features that we've identified in the building types and the architectural styles, and are now starting to lay out all of these individual features and materials within the design guidelines and how they should be treated. And so we'll have a section for, exterior walls that will cover masonry, brick, terracotta, limestone, marble, granite, concrete. It will also cover siding, as well, and including with siding, there's usually wood trim, glass, so curtain walls or glass block, as well as architectural metal cladding. And so we'll have illustrated, we'll have photographs of all of these materials as they're found within the City of Rock Island. And so you can see on the screen, this is just a layout from design guidelines that we worked on, where we have several examples of, it's predominantly, brick with some stone in this district. So we have examples of each of the materials that we found, a short description, and then you begin to see the guidelines. So on the right side of the screen, the guidelines for masonry repair and or replacement. With each photo too, or with each guideline, there'll be photos as well showing, for instance, acceptable tuck pointing, or, also unacceptable cladding of existing material. And so we also use graphics such as these green check marks or red X's to kind of let people know this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, and we'll have photographic illustrations for each of the guidelines as well. That way it is very clear for people who are reading it and using. Yeah.
May I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I don't think we have any more Indiana limestone buildings, although we do have other limestone buildings. So maybe substitute something like Broadway Presbyterian Church or the library, because that's different from the Bedford stone.
This is just an example. She's just showing a snippet of an
Oh, I
example
thought-
of what they.
Yeah.
Are
So-
you going to use actual Rock Island photos for
Yep.
this?
Yeah. So for all of the examples, they will be from Rock Island,
Okay.
as well as good examples of guidelines will be from Rock Island. We will not use any. So for instance, on the right, you see like a photo that has like a red X next
Okay.
to it.
Thank
That
you.
is an example of something that would be unacceptable. We will not use any photos from Rock Island. We don't want to accidentally kind of hurt anyone's feelings. So we will be visiting several of the communities around the Quad Cities to gather photos for unacceptable conditions, but for actual existing conditions and good examples, they will hopefully all come from the city of Rock Island.
Thank you.
Yeah. So continuing, next slide again, rehabilitation of historic properties. There's materials, but then we'll also do windows and doors, roof lines. So again, same thing, showing examples of existing conditions within Rock Island, and then also examples of, good replacement windows, or, maintaining, I should say, existing fenestration openings, which is what we want to see. And then also unacceptable examples of reconfiguring fenestration openings. So like you can see in the top right. So we'll again have all of those examples as well as existing conditions, which kind of serve as the reference and backup for why these design guidelines are what they are. And then we have a section also on addressing changes over time at historic properties. So on the left is an example of what we did for Main Street in Stoughton, Wisconsin for their design guidelines. So we had a historic building that had received a slip cover. So we have, a historic image, current image, and, possibly what they could do with the upper floor, removing that slip cover. And so I know there are a few buildings within Rock Island that have slip covers. This is just one example of changes over time. We'll also address changes that maybe have earned significance within their own right. And this really applies a lot of times to mid-century modern storefronts that are on earlier, like late 1800s, early 1900s buildings. And those mid-20th century storefronts, though, may have now acquired significance in their own right. And so how to address those changes over time to ensure the character defining features of a building are being preserved. Then we'll have design guidelines specifically for new construction. And so with new construction, we looked at building orientation, we looked at existing building orientation, we looked at existing setbacks, we looked at existing massing, as well as building height and scale. And that's all summarized in the document that was provided to you. But we'll take that information from our survey and use it to develop guidelines for new construction within predominantly the historic districts, and especially where you might see infill construction or the replacement of a non-contributing building. So we want to ensure that any new construction fits with the sense of place and character. So if a district is predominantly, 2 and 3 stories in height, like we might see in the Broadway Historic District. We don't want to see a 7-story, 8-story building. And so using the existing conditions of the built environment to create design guidelines for new construction. And so just on the screen is, we did this for a residential district in the city of Chicago. And so this is just some things that we'll address, obviously height and scale, setbacks, also even addressing, what types, different types of articulation that we might want to see at primary facades on new construction, as well as, if there's new construction in downtown Rock Island, there's a rhythm to the existing fenestration openings. And so we want to see that as well. And so we'll address all of that in the new construction guidelines. And then there will also be a separate section on additions to historic buildings, where we'll mock up and create graphics, as you can see on your screen, both for residential buildings as well as commercial buildings. And so we'll include those as well, making sure that additions, especially rooftop additions, are set back appropriately so their visibility is minimized, making sure new materials are compatible with the character of the historic building, making sure, again, fenestration openings on the addition are compatible and sensitive to the historic building. So we'll include all of that as well in a specific section on additions to historic buildings. We'll also include guidelines for property owners who might be interested in making accessibility upgrades, as well as retrofitting. A general is what's provided preservation for making a proper. And we'll cover historic exterior entrances, as well as site grading and possibly the need for ramps, as well as then subsequently railing design. Interior floor level changes. This typically is seen maybe in first floor storefronts where there might be small level changes within a storefront, as well as, interior vertical circulation, but that can impact the exterior if you're adding like an elevator addition. And so we'll address all of those major components that really can affect the exterior of a building within the accessibility guidelines. And then for retrofitting for energy efficiency, this also follows the National Park Service's preservation brief for retrofitting a historic building. And it covers operational changes, so small operational changes you can make to make your building more energy efficient, upgrading equipment and appliances, as well as upgrading building components to reduce air leakage, insulation at basement and crawl spaces or at roofs and attic spaces, installation of storm windows, both for non-storefront windows as well as possibly interior glazing at storefront windows, weather stripping, and also considering alternative energy sources. So if someone has a flat roof and could take advantage of solar panels, including that as well, or addressing, where it might be appropriate if someone has a pitched roof and how to appropriately install solar panels on a pitched roof so they're not necessarily visible from the public right of way. So we'll address all of that as well. And then we'll also include design guidelines for public realm improvements. So these are not necessarily attached to the building, but they are, pieces of the site that impact the public realm. So I know there's in the top left, there's, the stone steps that might still be there. I think that one's from the Broadway district. Also, obviously, Rock Island has several miles of brick streets. So addressing, and setting guidelines for preserving those. And some of these I would say might be more for the city's sake. And so like in the bottom right, kind of starting to look at what might have been historic, the historic design of street lighting. I know like downtown Rock Island, the streetlights are very utilitarian. And so if there were ever streetscape improvements, what might be an appropriate design? Broadway, there's also several homes with fencing or short retaining walls. So including all of this as well, because it all contributes to the character and sense of place within Rock Island's historic built environment. And then there will be an appendix with suggested resources. This will really be focused on, the first part will be focused on financial incentives, both for commercial and residential properties, and then also reference material, so including direct links to the preservation briefs as well as the preservation tech notes for more information. If someone, especially so someone can educate themselves, if they hire a contractor, they can know a little bit more information and background on what is appropriate. So we'll include that in an appendix as well. And then with that's kind of an overview of what we propose to include within the design guidelines. But again, happy to, if you feel like something's missing or something's not necessary, happy to discuss and then also take questions.
Are there questions for Erica or suggestions?
I had a
Jeff?
question. As you started talking about materials, for restoration, there's certainly a lot of new synthetic materials out there, some good, some bad. Will you touch on appropriateness?
Yes. Yeah. We'll touch on appropriate substitute materials if there is any. So for instance, like for brick, I would say there's not really an appropriate substitute material, but for terracotta, there's GFRC. So we'll touch on that, and then we'll also include when and where it might be appropriate. So for instance, if it's terracotta that's lower on the building, like at the first floor, GFRC would probably not be acceptable. But if we're talking about a cornice that's higher up along the roof line, that would be a more acceptable substitute material for terracotta if needed. So we'll definitely go into all of that detail where applicable for each material.
I think one area in particular we see a lot review on is like railings and wood replacement materials. There's a lot out there that just don't match,
Correct.
proportions correctly, and so I think that would be an important area to hit on.
Yeah, like the synthetic siding, and then also how to address, we'll also include how to address in the addressing changes over time, like the installation of formstone or permastone over a historic facade, and how to, remove that and deal with that as well. Because I know there are a few instances of those that I saw, maybe at least in the United States Housing Corporation District.
What about things like appropriate painting schemes? If somebody's looking to paint their house, I'm not saying that we dictate colors, but certainly, I don't know, a way to paint your house, I guess.
I guess
historically appropriate way to paint a house, I guess, is where.
Oh yeah. We'll include that in like when we talk about wood siding and wood trim, we'll include appropriate ways to prep and paint wood.
What's the time frame on this work, and when you're coming to report?
Yeah. So by the March, as long as everything's good, with the outline, we'll continue on. And by the March HPC meeting, we will have given a text draft to staff for their review. And then we plan to, we'll pick up any edits that staff has. And then by the April HPC, we'll have a more final text draft for you all to review. And then once we receive your approval on the text draft, then we'll illustrate everything. But we'll be working on illustrations at the same time. We just want to make sure that the text has everything that you all would like to see addressed and is kind of finalized, because once we move to layout, kind of making heavy text edits after, once we're in layout, can get a little messy. So we just want to make sure all the text is set. But by the next HPC meeting, staff will have a text draft in their hands.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Yeah.
I have a question. If you are going to talk, if you need any illustrations about the great unveiling, which actually started in Rock Island, that whole expression, but we've got before and after pictures of why, which helps justify how different it looks after you've taken off synthetic siding. So we've never taken off stone, I don't think, but.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. And in the text draft, I'll also identify, an initial list of all of the figures and illustrations we'll plan to include. So also we can comment, you all can comment and review that as well. And if you think there's anything else that you might have kind of over the recent history of kind of preservation in Rock Island that can be added, we can definitely add that to the list as well.
Alan?
Yeah, Eric, a couple things. You mentioned typology of style. There are some Spanish Revival / Mediterranean. 15th Avenue, like 27th, 28th Street location. I think there's a couple up there. And there's another one on 20. Yeah, the apartment building there as well. I think also on 24th Street at like 23rd Avenue, there's one that's been stuccoed or concreted, but it's a Spanish style.
Okay.
You might want to look at, then the other style that isn't included that she didn't mention was Lustron. We do have several Lustron homes in Rock Island.
Okay.
And those are more of a unique element.
Yeah, and I think we'll put that under, I can make sure that gets added to under like the building typologies too.
Yeah.
The 18th Avenue Spanish Revival in Highland Park.
Well, yeah, I was thinking that, yeah, it is former Walter Broad's home, yeah. And then one other component, a physical component that you might want to include is cell tower or other communication devices that would be sited on properties. I know we faced that several years back with Fort Armstrong when they put an array up there, and that could be happening again in the future, certainly.
Very good. Other comments?
I think just maybe one, I think in the past, we do have fences. I mean, you showed fences around houses, but I think we had just a quick reference to other things that would end up in people's yards, like try not to put your air conditioner right by the front door, or where the swimming pool goes, or some of those kinds of things that maybe seem like they're kind of minuscule, but it's amazing what some of us do sometimes.
You're talking things that people consider temporary. It's not a
Right.
structural change, but it's ugly from the street.
Right.
Good
If that's
idea.
appropriate.
I would like to see in fact, I'm not clear how you were doing it. If you're concentrating only on existing historic designated properties, historic district, I would like to see this expanded to the whole part of town, the whole area of town. We have areas of beautiful ranch-style houses. They're not designated. Areas of bungalows, they're not designated. But I think the guidelines you are creating help everyone preserve the value of their home, so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb.
And that was the intent of what staff saw this project being, is that it would be citywide, and that might answer one of your first questions to Erica about what is is this going to be more advisory? Is this going to be codified? I think of course it would be advisory for you have a nice older home. It's not a landmark structure. You want to do a historically sensitive rehab. You might open up this guidebook and follow it. But for a landmark property, I mean, typically the guidelines right now, staff use that as kind of the policy guidance to make our determination on if it should, the project should receive a certificate of appropriateness or not. And so I'd imagine it would be codified in that sense for landmark properties, or at least, it would be adopted as policy guidance by the commission to evaluate those requests on.
I see it as educational. You're educating people how to take care of their homes. My other question was, I had thought when we had discussed this at the commission level before the contract was even let, that we were going to do a little bit about maintenance. People are not doing maintenance on their homes, and it seems like young people grew up without a family member doing maintenance, so they see how to do it. And we see so many very minor things within our neighborhoods become major things because they don't realize how quickly damage can occur. And I know we had started a whole brochure on the whole thing. That's something almost freestanding, and we can still do that. But it would be nice to point that out. When you hear something, when you see something, investigate.
Yeah. So the first thing, just to go back to the first comment on this being applicable to the entire city, it absolutely will be. And I think that's where I just need, if you all have a moment, or if you email staff or email myself to let me know if there's any other like typology, building material, or architectural style to include, because we looked at the landmarked or historic properties as a basis. And so, and obviously, we have a multi-page outline based on that, but if there's anything else, we want to include it. So like the lustrons, I added, because Diane, you mentioned ranch homes, I added that as well. So if there's anything else that can be added that you don't see in terms of building typology, styles, and materials, please let me know. That way it is applicable to the entire city. I know it's kind of hard when you have a city of dozens of thousands of buildings, but if there is anything else that sticks out that's missing, please let me know. And then for maintenance, yes, when we talk about materials, it will identify, how things should be treated, and also how to monitor for maintenance issues and repairs as well. So we'll cover appropriate maintenance within each of the material types as well.
We had, a couple of us within the Broadway district had created a booklet on maintenance. And it's not all laid out, but in fact, I think I sent Tanner the text, and he might forward it to you. It's things people don't realize they should do.
Okay.
I can send the text to you again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind sending it again, that'd be great.
And also, you are aware we do have a Brick Street plan, which is a different document, but very common.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I also just want to say that I was impressed with the outline that you have, and I feel like it's going to push our design guidelines the next step upon what we have currently. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know of a city-wide comprehensive design guidelines that I've seen. So I would say this is it's pretty exciting and interesting to work on. Because again, I've only ever seen district-specific design guidelines. So good, I would say good for the city of Rock Island for taking this on.
Any more comments for Erica? If you think of anything, send them to Tanner. He will forward them to Erica. And thank you very much for this update.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Erica.
All right, thank you. I'll hop off, but I hope everyone has a good night. Thanks again.
Good night. Okay, and now we push another button to get back.
You can go back to one, yeah.
I'm not sure I went back to, I've hit one here. Oh.
you have your agenda. I guess you can, I can kind of talk while we're logging on to keep
Okay.
going.
Oh, good. Well, I think we're done with everything except any updates, and I see that,
We were going to talk about the CLG grant.
I had
oh,
a,
that's right, the CLG grant, yes.
Yeah.
I had a quick question about the guidelines before we leave
Yeah.
that topic. And this is a city internal thing, not the consultant.
Sure.
Do I recall correctly on the Heritage Resource Plan recommendations to like connect city incentives to guideline recommendations? I mean, are we envisioning any sort of, if you want a development agreement with TIF funding, for example, from the city, then you have to agree to the design guidelines that we're laying out here? I mean, is that part of staff's thinking on this document as well?
I think that is laid out as an idea in the Heritage Resource Plan. That's not something we have discussed as staff, but that's something we could definitely entertain doing. Even if it was like an optional thing, I'm not quite sure how that would work, but that's something we can discuss.
Okay, thanks.
I guess, are we fine without our computers being logged on?
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. There's no report, okay.
Yeah.
The CLG grant then.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch base on this again. I had reached out to the SHPO just to clarify the timeline because I didn't see the grant actually posted on their website. It has not been posted yet, so we have a little bit more time than what I had thought. I know last time we had discussed kind of ways to market, celebrate, recognize some of our historic districts, particularly downtown. Miles and I had met with Jack last week to discuss, Jack Colin, the Downtown Alliance, to discuss that idea a little bit further. We threw around a couple ideas. One concept that we talked about is some sort of app-based or web-based series of self-guided tours that would focus on our historic districts that are on the National Register primarily, so downtown, Broadway, and the U.S. Housing Corp. These could take, some of those tour brochures from the 90s, 2000s, digitize those, use that as a starting point, and then we could add, other information to that as necessary. But just as a thought, I know our historic resource inventory online also contains some additional information that could be incorporated in that. But wanted to get the commission's perspective on that. I know we had also talked about, other ways, particularly in the downtown, such as plaques or some sort of monument in the center of downtown. One of the thoughts that we had on that is why not, we could do a plan for that, but why not just do it? Why not just, pay, a company to design, make the plaques, have the Preservation Commission, assist in that process, and then figure out how to get them on buildings, working with the Downtown Alliance on that sort of thing. So just curious on getting the commission's perspective. Alderman Parker, you're welcome to chime in, of course. But yeah, those are just some ideas.
So when you're thinking with plaques downtown, you're thinking of just a plaque on every building saying what it is in the year, or are you are you taking it past that to have it be more informational than that?
I think we would take it past that point, and I guess it could vary on the property's historic importance. I mean, certain properties might just be that it's a contributing structure in the downtown National Register Historic District with maybe a short blurb on it. Other properties that maybe have a bit more significance, the blurb could be a bit longer. I mean, that could be something the Preservation Commission could advise on and think about.
Could we use the passport system and expand on that downtown? And we've got it other places through the Quad Cities, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And because you get an awful lot of information if you go in, log into those, much more than you're going to get off of plaque.
Sure. And that would be the idea of, you know, the CLG grant would be to, we're thinking that that's what we would actually need more help with, is like doing some sort of app or some sort of digital walking tour like that, or paying a consultant to put that together versus, you know, a plan to just say, you know, it'd be good to have a plaques and a monument. Because I think there's a good consensus that like that would be a fair thing to do. And so why not just do
I
it?
don't think people want to walk around with their phone or an app and look at buildings. When you have a tour, like the library does tours of Broadway, and they've got some of the board members who've been leading tours. They're quite popular. And there's a limited number, only 25 a time. But those could be expanded, because every time you do them, you get a 25. And I believe the library limits the number because you can't take 100 people. But they've been quite popular when they've done them.
Sure.
And people say,
That's
when are you going to
something-
do the next one?
That's
And
something
maybe
that
we could
really-
work with the library and to do areas other than downtown.
What about?
I guess my thought on that would be why not just figure out a way to do it all? I mean, as far as applying for a CLG grant, I don't know, you know, for increasing the number of in-person tours that we have, I don't think that's necessarily possible. But if it, you know, I would disagree a bit on, I think people like, there's segments of the population that do like to have, you know, a digital app to go through a tour, and I think it would be helpful to have that sort of thing. Certainly it won't, you know, that's not going to be everybody's thing that they gravitate towards, but it could be a nice thing for some folks that, you know, we don't really have the capability of doing ourselves.
If we talk to River Action does some really good walks, but it seems like the walks I've seen have been in the Davenport area, not on this side of the river much, in terms of historic buildings.
I know they do a riverfront golf cart tour once a year, but as far as, you know, other tours in the city, I'm not sure. Alderman Parker,
Thanks. I think that this conversation is demonstrating the potential value of what I have suggested. Is it the passport? Do we hitch our wagon to the passport program that already exists? Do we create a separate app that is owned by the city of Rock Island? Do we do walking tours with River Action? Do we do walking tours at the library? Do we, you know, have it be done by the city? Do we do that kind of plaque? Do we do this kind of plaque? Do we, right? I mean, that is the point of having a firm that has knowledge of place management, of interpretation, of marketing, of this big question of how do we better celebrate our historic districts in our city? What's the best way to do it, and what does that actually look like? What does a walking tour actually look like with a budget and itemized, okay, if you're going to do it, this is what you have to do. And that's why my recommendation has been a broader, zoomed out look at how should we do this. I think we always jump ahead and say, oh, well, we should do this. And I think at first we should zoom out a little bit. I guess, Tanner, I compare it to our Port District strategic planning exercise, where prior to us saying, we're going to go for a site selection grant through DCEO for the 31st Avenue location, right? We first do a Port District strategic plan where we zoom out and say, what are all the projects that we could accomplish with a Port District, and what are they going to cost, and who owns them, and, you know, all of these things, so that then that's the document that you take to the next grant application and say, we have the strategic plan for our Port District. We've identified that we need to do site preparation work here. Now we can take that document and apply for the site preparation grants to execute on the specific projects that people want to see. I'm recommending something similar for historic preservation, where we create a holistic document about how do we celebrate our historic districts, and then use that to then pursue additional funding, et cetera, for the specific projects identified in that plan. I don't know if that Port District comparison is helpful, but that's how I've been thinking of it.
Sure.
Do we have any indication from the SHPO's office as to what their priorities will be for the CLG grants? Typically, I think they have provided some guidance on that as to what they think will be successful applications given the limited amount of funding they've got.
Mm-hmm. In recent years, you know, they've prioritized, I think I've said this before, but survey projects and then National Register nominations, and that's still the case. But I think some sort of planning exercise, I think that could be competitive. Yeah.
And taking the broader perspective that Dylan just talked about would potentially provide some transferability of what we've done to other locations in the state that would be as a template for others to make use of, which I think that could provide some strength to the application as well.
Sure. One thing that, you know, Jack had mentioned that I think we should be mindful of is if it's, you know, the downtown brand has been established, and just making sure not to create a competing brand or something else there. I know historic is part of that brand, and I think that can be supplemented or played on. And we, of course, would want to include the Downtown Alliance and how that plan shakes out and whatever we do. But just something to be mindful of, I guess, is if we would go through this process.
So being mindful of that, where are they with that? I mean, if we're trying to, as I travel and I want to see how other people are promoting their downtown, what do I have to remember about our downtown that's already been chosen that you know, we're not going to put, I don't know, circus balloons up, or, I mean, obviously we're not, but does he have guidance for us yet? Because in the past when I've talked to him about things, or we've talked to him about things, it's kind of been more, well, we're going to get to that, or we decided it's already done, one side or the other. So I'm just looking for a little bit of guidance if we're trying to. I mean, we're not going to pay somebody to put together 9,000 different, maybe 9 really good suggestions if they're already on a road and they're not going to turn from that road.
Tanner, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, you're welcome to comment on that. Yeah.
I don't think, while the Rock Island Downtown Alliance through the branding exercise recognizes one of the strengths of downtown Rock Island as historical, the branding exercise was used to then generate the marketing plan that the Downtown Alliance is currently rolling out. I don't know how many of you scroll on social media, but perhaps you've seen recent advertisements and promoted material from the Rock Island Downtown Alliance about the small business owners behind our favorite downtown businesses. The Downtown Alliance is prioritizing that asset of our downtown community, the people, the faces behind our downtown, over other strengths of our downtown, like its history and its historical nature. Now, this is a 3-year marketing campaign that they have started, so at some point, maybe they will include history, but their priority right now is not the history of downtown Rock Island or the historical strength. They recognize that it's a strength, but as far as marketing it, that's not what they're prioritizing right now.
Okay. But they would want or expect or whatever that even if we paid for the survey, if we came forward and said, I mean, they would want veto power over what comes to the downtown then, about what we would do. I mean, to me, it's obviously going to have to be a combination of in-person tours, some kind of signage, festivals, and do you tag different kinds of tours with the different kinds of festivals? I mean, it's all that stuff.
Right.
It's not just picking one plaque and sticking it on every building. Although we could do that too. I guess I think as much as spending a lot on another, a different consulting firm, is to really kind of know where it is that they want us to go. And maybe they'll go wherever they're, I mean, if somebody comes and says this is most effective, maybe they'll say, okay, fine, that's good, but I'm just not convinced of that, maybe. A little contrarian today, I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. I'm not sure I understand the question. I don't think that the Rock Island Downtown Alliance presumes that they have any sort of veto power over the Preservation Commission or the city of Rock Island. Obviously, they want integration and coordination between their organization, what the city is doing, even what RIPS is doing, probably. And it's for that reason that, for example, while the branding exercise and now the marketing campaign were 100% procured by and developed by the Downtown Alliance, the separate private nonprofit organization, it came before the city council because while it's their project, they want it to be also something that resonates with and is approved by the city council, right? It's not a turf battle, it's do we all agree that this is something that we identify with our downtown, for example? So I think the request would be to invite the Downtown Alliance into a planning exercise or a conversation about how to better celebrate our historic downtown. But I don't think it's a matter of it has to be whatever they say. It has to be.
As long as we kind of make sure that we don't pay for another plan that we never quite have the money to or the whatever to get around to actually implement it. I mean, the whole goal of putting together a plan of how we market downtown needs to come back to us in a way that we can afford to do it or we're committed to doing it.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think by generating a plan, that is where our partners like the Downtown Alliance can say, well, we've got $5,000 set aside for marketing next year. You have a plan. Maybe we can contribute some funds to it, right? I mean, that's how I envision it would work, is if we take on the work of identifying how are we going to do this and what's it going to cost, then we can go to the Downtown Alliance and including them in that process of saying, okay, we've identified that the best way to market our historic downtown is through an app, just picking a random example, and it's going to cost us $5,000. That's when we can have a conversation with the Downtown Alliance that says, you already have money set aside for marketing, your own branding exercise identified this as a strength, could we partner together on this cost, for example?
Thank you.
Just from a practical standpoint, we're looking at 27 before there's any plan that's actually completed to provide, in particular, Downtown Alliance, another year's worth of work to progress on their marketing campaign to see how then things could dovetail. So there's a lead time that's out there before anything actually happens. We're looking at probably 27, 28 for significant projects to be implemented.
For what it's worth, I like the idea of trying to figure out a plan of what to do with our, I guess, marketing our historic properties through an app or whatever, whatever you want to call it.
Is there a consensus? I think there is, but is there consensus from the commission on putting together an application that would do that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I'd maybe add would be if it becomes too unwieldy in terms of its scale, and maybe look at breaking out components of it so that it could be, you know, a menu opportunity.
Yeah. One of my concerns is sometimes, I mean, Rock Island has a lot of great historic areas, but like geographically, sometimes I feel like our scope might be a little too broad and we're not focused, and then we don't do anything in one certain area. And that's actually probably something that this plan, I guess, could help maybe prioritize in the way of like where would we focus efforts initially versus later on. Just a thought, but that's sometimes what I feel.
Just need more staff.
Well, yeah.
I think the baseline thing, the challenge that I've identified is that survey work, the things that CLG grants traditionally fund are very important, and it's good that we use them, but the public doesn't know anything about surveys. And so what is the point? I mean, again, not to diminish the important work of the architects and the professionals that use that type of information, but again, if we identify that our historical properties and neighborhoods, et cetera, character is a strength of our community, we got to go from just surveying stuff to leveraging to advertising, marketing, celebrating, all of that stuff. So how do we make that jump? And to your point, Alan, I think that that would be very interesting for other communities and for the state of Illinois. They're funding this survey work all the time, and I bet you we're not the only community that's saying, we're doing all this work and yet nobody knows about it. And so how can we change that?
But we have had a lot of survey work done in the past, and it's extremely good as a reference tool, but we haven't done anything with them. I don't know that there would be much of a benefit of National Register for instance, the Weissman edition or others. It's certainly possible, but there's not much benefit other than prestige.
Right.
So, and they're in no danger of going away. I think that was one of the reasons for doing the 1918 government housing, because they are being changed on a regular basis. So I don't know where we do a survey, because the whole city has been surveyed.
Right.
But if we could, we've got a lot now in the riverfront overlay, and you don't need designation for that if it's a tax credit thing.
So Tanner, do you have directions from us that you need to move forward on this?
Yep, I do. So I will put together, once the application portal, I see it, I'll put together a draft application. I'd like to share that with the commission just to make sure that, and I can share it with you too, Alderman Parker, to make sure that this is, or the application that we put together is what we're all wanting, and it covers everything. So we will do that and then work to get that submitted over the course of the next month.
If they release an area of emphasis, send that to us.
Sure.
There might be some enhancements.
Will do. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, now we are talking about some of the old things, and where's the Eunice's
Plaque.
Oh, Jeff, I don't know if you want to share that first, or you too.
Oh, the current ones, yeah.
I just researched some plaques that are out there and was trying to come up with the price and stuff that I was finding was $200 plaque. We came up with all sorts of different information on the plaque. But I think we had a discussion that we talked about for now. So,
Yeah. Well, at least we have prices.
Well,
Jeff, microphone.
Sorry. So I tried a different direction as far as working with a local company to see how take our existing plaque and sort of rethink it. Started out with basically a laser cut version of the plaque. Now this is just raw steel. It can be painted any color. It can be within limits. It could be stainless steel.
It could be brass.
Not sure about brass.
Oh,
But painted, I mean, it's a nice finish. It's like an automotive finish. But it could be any color. So this is just the raw steel. So I came up with the idea of using another material, such as copper, to have as a backer. And could even get a little standoff to get a little reveal to it. We could play with the finish. I'm not sure if everyone can see this. And play with the actual finish of the copper. I sort of like copper because that can age, as it's outside, or we could pre-age it. There's ways to do that. They have limitations on what they can cut with a laser. Because initially I was trying to get them to cut the copper with laser, they said he can't do it, it's too reflective and it doesn't take the laser. So this was sort of like the layered effect as a potential. So that's the kind of thing I was exploring. And pardon me?
Is there a price on that, what that would
Well,
run?
that's sort of the intriguing thing. So working with a local company, Crawford Company, with their metal fabrication, and really the price is nominal. In fact, Jim Maynard, one of the owners of the company, is saying, I'll probably just donate them. So that's not a definite quote, but it'd be.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of thing that once you have it set up, I mean, it's, you know, the amount of material is minimal and the, you know, repetitiveness of it, you know, you do 20 of them pretty easily out of a small sheet.
I like that.
So,
I like that very much. Well, we should defer it to another meeting because
Yeah.
somebody might have another brilliant
Well,
idea.
and
Right.
before we
But,
go totally from that, I mean, I like that idea as the marker for it, but again, I would say that that's probably step one, because if you really want to encourage people to visit your downtown, they don't necessarily need to see the same sign, or even the name of the building 15 times. So you're either going to have to figure out a way to QR code it or some other way to have somebody walk it. I mean, there's all kinds of other things you can do to go with that. To me, that would be our base.
This would just be to replace our current landmark.
this is the landmark
Replace
plaque.
it in terracotta.
So it wouldn't be like a
Instead of
downtown
this.
building marker. That would be something separate that we would do. This would just be for the landmark properties.
And there, even though downtown is National Register, there's not many landmarks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud here, you mentioned that you can paint the steel finish with an
Yes.
auto-grade paint, just so that it popped a little more. I'm thinking it might be a good idea to use some kind of a color on that and then have the copper backdrop. Because if you had that, it'll stand out a little more. I'm afraid that the steel could get pretty faded over time.
Right. No, that was really the intent, and right now I wanted to see what it looked like first. And, I mean, I went with replicating the current form, but we wouldn't have to do that either. I mean, it really can be anything. But I thought this turned out pretty decent.
Yeah, and
The
the
raw
nice thing
steel
about that
would
is
rust though, wouldn't it? Yeah.
No, yes, it would.
Okay, but
So
it
the
would-
intent is that it would have a finish.
Have a coating.
We just
I'm
didn't
sorry.
Yeah,
have
the
the
nice-
time to put a finish
And the
on.
nice thing about that is it maintains some consistency between our prior landmarks.
Right, exactly.
Which is
So it's got
a sort of a
connection.
brand that we've developed, so yeah. Thanks for doing that, that's a great idea.
Looks great. Maybe it'd be useful to have them pre-stress the copper so with the patina on it to see how it stands out.
Right.
Because with it copper, it'll pop, but
Yeah.
when it gets the
Yeah.
patina, less so.
Right, exactly.
I like the idea of the slight standoff. Plus, the other thing I like is it's very difficult to mount our terracotta plaques. They have to go on wood with silicone or something and then screwed to the house. That is very simple.
Right, yeah, there's actually sort of 3 mounting points that you
And
put
if
the
you have a
screws
brick
in.
house, you can do it in the mortar joints. You can arrange it one way
Right.
or another.
Yeah. So we can work on some more samples and some options. If you have any of you have any ideas, let me know if,
It would be
colors.
interesting to even, if you had a few sections of the steel, you do a lot of painting? I mean, just to do some different colors. Just to have like a swatch, if you will.
Right.
To see how they
Right.
would look against the,
Yeah, I think we'll work at getting a sample or two here and then maybe some swatches for lack of better terms.
Good. City's color scheme with the blue and whatever color that, blue and terracotta color.
Blue and terracotta.
The
Oh,
logo color.
true.
Color scheme.
That could work.
well, if you lacquered the copper, it wouldn't patinate. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right, gives me something to work on.
Thank you.
Nice
Yeah.
job, nice job.
Thank you.
The last thing
Price is
that from a city budget perspective, it sounds okay. The last thing we had was Eunice put this together. Eunice, I don't know if you want to come out from the back room there, but we had discussed about giving out a certificate with Landmark Properties. Eunice went and got this frame just to visualize it a little bit better, but this is kind of what we had landed on the last time. Font can of course change, but that's the general idea that we were going with. So if people are okay with that.
I had called Eunice afterwards because it had basically filled an 8.5 by 11. I said, if you put it in a frame, even with no mat, you need a little bit of, you have to shrink it. And I like it.
Okay. So if that's fine, we can start, printing those up, and thank you, Eunice. Appreciate it.
Yes. Where is she?
She's,
Oh, in the room. Okay. Thank you, Eunice. And any final guidelines for submission for Moses?
we don't have any update on that,
Okay, no problem.
but we
No
can
problem.
certainly discuss that at next month's
Okay.
meeting. Yeah.
Anything else that we covered before and that we have to update? Well, staff has been working very hard. I thank you. And good job for all of you.
We should probably recognize Mark for the work on, doing the homework on the bridge and writing that letter.
Right, and I should have acknowledged Mark and Alan collaborated on a wonderful, concise letter, and I got the privilege of signing it and sending it. And I did get an acknowledgement from the lady they sent it to, that it has been received and will be entered into the files. So, yes, thank you too for doing that and doing it so promptly. We are optimistic. Okay, any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.